President Trump says the European Union will start buying American supplies right away as Chinese import duties dampen demand. U.S. soybean futures climbed today on the news that with an announcement of the U.S.'s government's plan to offer $12 billion in assistance to farmers. Senator Steve Daines, a Republican from Montana, spoke with Bloomberg's Kevin Cirilli from Capitol Hill.
It's a big deal for American agriculture as well. So, and here's why. 95% of the world's consumers live outside the United States. So we just comprise 5%. Now, we, on a per capita basis, have a higher purchasing power, but we think about long term where the future markets are for our producers in the United States. It's about these international markets. What was also announced yesterday with the EU was not just the ag side, and that's very, very important, but also on energy. Mm-hmm. So, as we said, a nation that can feed itself and fuel itself is a more secure nation. Taking that the next step, have the United States feed the world and fuel the world is very important for us economically, but also important as it relates to national security.
I want to ask you about LNG, but just sticking with agriculture for one more question in terms of sorghum, soybeans, as well as a host of other commodities. Farmers were a bit uneasy. Lawmakers, you yourself, a bit uneasy heading into these talks. You're seeing the pushback from China as a result of these bilateral talks. But with what's going on in Europe, do you think this sends a signal that the president is hearing the concerns of farmers as he's negotiating these deals?
Well, I can tell you unequivocally, the president is very in tune with American farmers and ranchers. We talked that at length following that EU press conference in the Rose Garden yesterday. In fact, he's got some red hats that said, make farmers great again. I mean, he is very much attuned to the American farmer and rancher, and that's why he had a lot of the members from ag states with him yesterday. But here's what the president's doing. He's going after these trade negotiations from a position of strength. The United States economy is very strong at the moment. Our economy is in a bull market. Contrast that to the Chinese economy right now, which is officially in a bear market. And so we're in a position of strength here, and that is why
he's got the upper hand.
He does have the upper hand. And I'll tell you, seeing this win yesterday with the EU, I think that's going to follow with more cascading wins around the world.
And with regards to LNG, you mentioned LNG. That also sends a signal to Russia, no?
It does. Well, 3 weeks ago, I was in Russia, had meetings with Minister Lavrov, met with the Duma there. 30% of Europe's energy needs are supplied by Russia right now. 50% of Germany's energy needs, come from Russia. Tell you what, we make our nation a lot more secure and the world a lot more secure if we reduce the dependence on Russia for energy as well as the Middle East. And we have this opportunity right now with American natural gas.
So there are some concerns, there are some criticisms, you know this, that the president was communicating wrongly with NATO allies, with European allies. Does this reset that a bit?
Well, I tell you what, it was important that the message was sent to our NATO allies. They need to pay their fair share. That's the important message here. NATO is a very important alliance. We need to stand with our NATO allies, stand with our European allies. We just need some help here in terms of allowing them to pay their fair share in these important agreements we have with NATO.
And with regards to Russia, in terms of the president making the announcement that he's no longer going to have Russian President Vladimir Putin at the White House until next year. Good move, bad move? Your thoughts?
Well, I applaud the president in working to establish a dialogue with Russia. And here's why. When we were in Russia 3 weeks ago, we met with Ambassador Huntsman, our U.S. ambassador to Russia. Remember, Ambassador Huntsman used to be the U.S. ambassador to China. So he sees the big picture on the global stage, China, Russia, as well as the United States. He said this to us. He said the U.S.-China relationship is too big to fail because it's the two world's largest economies. You think about the two large economies, China is about 12 trillion, second place. We're at about 19 trillion, first place. Third place, fourth place drop off precipitously. So it's about China, the U.S. as it relates to the global economy. That's why it's too big to fail. The U.S.-Russia relationship is too big to fail because they control 90% of the world's nuclear weapons.
It's too big to fail, yeah.
It's very important because of the nuclear arsenals of our two countries that we continue to have open dialogue with Russia. Granted, our relationship with Russia is at a post-Cold War low. That's why it's important that we start to at least keep the dialogue open. We disagree strongly with the Russians. What they've done with election interference, they've done in Syria, Ukraine, Crimea, violation of nuclear treaties. There's plenty of things that we disagree strongly with the Russians and send a strong message to, but having open dialogue is important.
Final question for you, just quickly on NAFTA. I know this is another crucial trade agreement for your state. Do you prefer bilateral talks, or do you prefer the president to reauthorize NAFTA, to renegotiate it with Canada and Mexico?
Yeah, to me, it's not so important whether it's bilateral or multilateral. These are means to an end. What's the end goal here? Free, fair, reciprocal trade. That's where we're getting to. That's the end goal, whether that's a bilateral agreement or multilateral. To me, it's not important. I just want to see that.
Do you have a timeline on that? Did you get that from the minister?
So I got the impression from the administration that they're optimistic we're going to see some resolution here on some of these disputes we have right now with Mexico and Canada.